public hearing scheduled. I'm going to take a minute just to get organized for that real fast, and then we'll begin the public hearing. If you haven't done so yet and you'd like to speak during the hearing, I do have a piece of paper up here. Just raise your hand. I can run down and get your signature so I know who's speaking tonight. All right.
It's also digital.
Do iPads for those? Do iPads for those?
Yeah. All right. Awesome. Thank you. All right. Well, today is September 5th, 2023. Today is a Committee of the Whole meeting for Barberton City Council. Before we begin the Committee of the Whole meeting, we do have a request for a public hearing. Today is September 5th, 2023. A public hearing was called by Mrs. Stacy Carr, Strategic Planner, and the Director will be stepping in for her. And I call this meeting to order, or this hearing to order at 6:01 p.m. This is a public hearing for Barberton City Council, Tuesday, September 5th, 2023, at 6:01. This is in regards to zoning map amendment request at former Oakdale School site, Barberton. This is a zoning map amendment request by Ken Rudder Jr. for property located at former Oakdale School, parcel 0117406, 0117407, 0117408, 0117409, 0117410, 0117411, 0117412, 0117413, 0117414, 0117415, 0117416, 0117417, 0117418, 0117419, 01742, and 0117421. From RS 50 residential single family to RM 18 residential multifamily. Clerk, can you call the roll?
President Greer.
Present.
Mr. Heidick.
Here.
Mrs. Thompson.
Here.
Mrs. Bailey.
Here.
Mrs. Angela.
Here.
Mr. Griffith.
Here.
Mr. Jaber.
Here.
Mrs. Coburn.
Here.
Mrs. Fry.
Here.
Thank you. As I stated earlier, Stacy Carr was scheduled to speak on the hearing, but I will call the director, planning director, up to take her place.
Yes, thank you. As you mentioned, Ken Ruddick Jr. had applied for a rezoning from RS50 to an RM18 with the hope of turning the 16 properties on the Oakdale site into 32 multifamily, 2 and 3 bedroom structures with 2 units per parcel. This came before the planning department at the end of June. Upon working on the staff report, it was determined by staff that we did not feel that the proposed zoning change would be consistent with the existing nature of the neighborhood itself, nor consistent with the development code. As when this was created, as when the development code was created in 2006, this site was intended on being single-family residential moving forward. This was presented to the Planning Commission at our July 19th meeting, and it was determined unanimously that the Planning Commission would recommend denial of the zoning change to council. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Is there any person representing the property or the person that was requesting this? No? All right. If you have nothing else, is there any questions from the members of council? Mrs. Angela?
Thank you, President Greer. I was at the June, I want to thank everybody for coming. I was at the June Planning Commission meeting, and I spoke against rezoning this. There are a few apartments or side-by-sides in some areas, but the majority is single-family homes. And I believe it was 32 or 36 multifamilies that they wanted to put there.
It would be 32.
32. And I am totally against that. We don't need any more apartments. That whole neighborhood is family-owned, single-family-owned, and I'd like to see that continue. I think that's what we need in this town, especially in that area. We don't need any more apartments. So, as I said before, I'm against it, and I'm still against it, and I will vote no if it comes to council on a vote. Thank you.
And I will say that for the multifamily residential that was mentioned by Councilwoman Angela, those are considered to be legally non-conforming and are grandfathered in.
Yeah,
So the
they're
intent
older
for
ones.
those, if those would go in, they revert back to single family as well.
I'm sorry, I forgot to say that.
Is there anything else from council members? Mr. Heidick?
Thank you, Mr. President. With that many proposed multifamily units, what do our safety forces think of something of that nature being right in the middle of a neighborhood with that kind of thing? Is that something that the fire chief or the police chief have weighed in on?
Not to my knowledge, based on our recommendation, but no, we did not clarify that with them. Since we knew we were going to be recommending denial, we didn't think that we would need to take that extra step further to get that clarification.
Thank you.
Mrs. Thompson?
Thank you. I just wanted to agree with Mrs. Angeloff and Mr. Worsler as well as the whole planning commission, as it was unanimous. I am also against this rezoning. As Mr. Worsler had mentioned, not only does it not fit the neighborhood, but it also does not follow our development code. One of the reasons being that they did not have garages, I believe, attached to the majority of them or some of them. So for that, I will be voting no against this if it comes before council as well.
All right. Any other council members? Mr. Jaber?
Thanks, President. Well, thank you guys for working on this project. Neighbors got involved, and also safety forces, the mayor's office, and the planning commission. I also agree that we should not put that there. Now, if we have better plan of single homes, maybe we can work with them. And we appreciate that he did come to Barberton, invest that money into Barberton. But that location right now would definitely not fit what we need to do there. But in the future, if he does have another location in Barberton that fits that, maybe we can waive that $800 fee that he did apply with. That way we can show him, okay, we thank you for trying again at a different location for those homes. But we don't want to push him out of here, with the slap in the face or the door open for him. But definitely in that area, we should just keep it single homes. I've had a lot of emails and a lot of messages and a lot of calls from residents in that area, and they all agree single homes only. Thank you.
Any other council members? Is anybody in the administration have any questions or comments? All right, seeing none from council members or administration, I'm going to open up for the gallery. However, we will start with people that did sign in to speak. If I call on your name, just step up to the microphone. You can state your name and address. And if you don't want to speak, maybe perhaps the topic has been hit from council members or the director, just let me know. So we'll start with Donald Davenport. Oh, okay.
Hello, Donald Davenport, 323 East Park Avenue. I live about a block away from the site that's being proposed for rezoning. I'm not for it. I'm against it. I live already across the street from Akron Metropolitan Housing Authority, which is a rental property. I grew up in a small town called East Liverpool in the downtown area. I know what certain types of traffic look like, and I'm not a fan. I would like to keep this single-family homes in a place where young children can flourish. I know that there are a lot of children in our neighborhood, including my own. I worry about the increased parking, the increased traffic, the increased presence from police, as if their multiple weekly trips to the Akron Metropolitan Housing Authority building were not enough. I worry about the stress on our sewer systems, our internet connections. I know that it's a common area that people like to use. Just over the weekend, I saw quite a few people enjoying the Lake Anna fireworks with their families in that area. I know that would have to change, but I'm still not in favor of anything but single-family homes, and I appreciate what I've heard so far.
Thanks, sir. All right. Jason Charlton?
Evening, Jason Charlton, I live at 693 Houston. I've got a short thing. Similar topic, but not that specifically that site. I want to talk about how the city's handling house condemnations. I'm just going to read something prepared to talk about on tangents.
This is a little off topic from what the hearing is.
Yes.
Sir, you can wait, and during the committee of the whole meeting, you can be
Yeah.
given 10 minutes to speak.
Okay, so
Yeah, I apologize.
Last you called me. No, I'm just.
Yeah, your name was on the
Yeah,
public
that's-
speaking list for the hearing, so.
Okay, perfect.
Yep, we'll make sure that you get in on the committee of or one of the committee meetings.
That's what I thought it was.
Oh, sorry, apologize. Next up, Crystal Allen.
I don't think I need to say anything. I think it's been hit.
All right, awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
Larry Meadows.
Same as Mrs. Allen, I think everything's been touched on bases and don't feel the need to speak any further on it.
Thank you. Becky Fiesta? Fiesta? Sorry. Oh, yeah, I did say P.
Feaster.
Fiesta.
Feaster.
My name is Becky Feaster. I live at 369 East Page Avenue. I have been there for approximately 39 years. I know when I first moved in there was a green water tower on the side of my backyard. Well, that has been torn down to put a cell phone tower right in my side yard. And in the front yard of where I live now, there is a golf ball tee that is the new water tower. So I know the hospital wanted to put a parking lot also right across the street from me. It wouldn't be bad if housing went in there, like 4 maybe on each side, but are you talking like 8? And I just think that it is going to be really bad. There's no parking on either street, and with that many rental properties, it will really deteriorate the neighborhood immensely. So I just wanted to say, I know with all the things that we've had put in over the years, especially even with the cell phone tower, you know, that thing just clangs constantly when there's any kind of wind, and it's just a nuisance, you know. So it's like, what else are you going to put up there in my neighborhood? So just wanted to say I'm not totally against it, but totally for the numbers that they're trying to put in. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Mrs. Feaster. That is it for the public speaking. If you'd like to speak, is there anybody else? Is there any questions or other comments from the gallery? All right. Just one last time, anything else from council members? Anything else from the administration?
One question.
Mr. Jaber?
Thank you, Mr. Greer. Planning commissioner, director, did he know that we had a meeting today for this? The builder?
Yes, he was informed.
Did he send you an email saying that he here or call or anything?
We made it clear to him when the meeting was specifically supposed to be held, and he wanted to continue. He said he did, but he chose not to attend.
If it was very important for him, he should have been here. I mean, if you really want to go deep with this. So, all right, thank you.
All right, is there any other council members, comments, administration? Are there any other questions or comments? This is for the gallery too as well. Are there any other questions or comments? And one more time, are there any other questions or comments? All right, hearing none and seeing none, this public hearing is closed at 6:14 p.m. Thank you. You guys are more than welcome to stick around for the council meeting if you'd like. We can give you a minute to leave too.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's just starting.
I don't vote. He's asking when is the vote.
We haven't even got it yet.
Yeah.
We haven't gotten the legislation
You don't know
yet.
when the final vote's gonna be?
It'll be, 6 weeks after
Yeah.
the first day
Let's
we
go
read
3
it.
readings.
Yeah.
Thank you for
So
coming.
there'll be, just keep an eye out.
Will they-
We have on our website, you'll see it
Yes.
on our agenda. And then,
Who is my Ward 2 council member? Councilman.
Thank you for
Right there.
coming.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. See you. Thank you. Bye, Becky.
He should have been here.
I think with how it went in planning commission,
Put that money in it, put the effort,
yeah, I know.
still.
Oh, okay. You're right. Oh, what- yes.
Also, it
Because
makes
it's
sense
already-
what you said. If it fits better
It's
somewhere
already
else, I think
single
that is
family.
something we
So we'd
should
be
do.
voting
You
no
know,
to
this
change
area
it
doesn't
to,
work, but check out this one.
Because it's already single. Okay, yes. It'd be yes to affirm.
Right. To deny. Voting yes to deny. Yep. Yep.
We're not voting today.
No.
Right. Yep.
all right.
Oh my God, Joycey.
Are you sure? Yes. Okay. All right. Today is Tuesday, September 5th, 2023. It is a committee of the whole meeting from Barberton City Council. Before we jump into the committee of the whole meeting, we do have individual committee meetings this evening. We do have every single committee meeting tonight. And first up is street, sidewalk, and lighting with Mrs. Angelo.
Thank you, Mr. Greer, President Greer. I would like to bring to order the Street, Sidewalk, and Lighting Committee meeting at 6:17. All members of the committee are present, along with council. Mrs. Bailey is on the committee, Mr. Shorter, and I as chair. And guests as noted on my sheet. We have no requested legislation at this time and no pending legislation. And I can open it up with miscellaneous, but before I open it up to council members or members of the public, I'd like to give a slight report about the progress of the projects, the street projects that are going on in the community. I've heard a lot of grumble, like, I can't get down Norton Avenue and I can't get down Hopkinton Avenue. That's good stuff. That's good stuff. You can call me about that all the time. I think that's good stuff. So the first project is Hopkinton from Hillsdale to 8th Street. The base coat's there and the stripe is done. The ADA ramps are to be installed. The railroad tracks will be repaired, and there's approximately 1,600 foot of curbing that will be replaced. Also, repairs to a failing storm sewer on 7th Street which is outside of the project limits, but that's going to be repaired too. The next project is Norton Avenue from 17th Street to Barber Road. The base coat's there and the stripe down the middle. The ADA ramps will be installed. Snyder Avenue from 2nd Street Southwest to 5th Street Southeast. The base coat has been applied and it's been striped, and the ADA ramps will be installed. That's something I've gotten lots of calls on. Oh, they paved it, it looks like crap, and they striped it. It's the base coat. If you look at the curbing, there's no ADA ramp, so they have to put that in, and they have to fix anything else there. So this is just the base coat, and they'll come back through as they did last year, and the year before, and the year before, and they'll put in the final coat. Worcester Road North and State Street, has anybody noticed all the concrete work and everything? That work's continue. It's continuing. It has new water lines. They've been installed and pressure tested. Worcester Road West from Hudson to 2nd Street Southwest. The city cambered both the storm and sanitary sewers, and they did identify some minor repairs. They also checked all water valves and have identified valve repairs that will be included in the reconstruction project. And there will be some valves that will be done in-house. This project is controlled by ODOT. Therefore, the bid will be, this project will be bid in the 4th quarter. Taylor Road, this project has been bid out, and the city is in the process of completing and awarding the bid, and then they will be scheduling a pre-construction meeting to kick off that project. The sidewalk program has, as of now, has not started. I will see if Mr. Shreve has anything to delete, to add, to correct. And about the, have you got a report on the residential resurfacing?
Yeah, so I've actually got a couple of updates since I talked to you earlier today.
Okay, good.
So and that's, I wanted to touch on Worcester West, just to remind everybody that is a massive project that is not only resurfacing, it is reconstruction. There is going to be sidewalks, there's going to be curbs, there's going to be storm sewer. So there's a lot of planning that goes into that. There's going to be some relocations of probably some electric poles, some gas lines. There's a lot of things that go into that project. That project's going to take over a year. So just imagine, I mean, if once it's all on paper, it's going to take a year to construct. Taylor Road, the pre-con is scheduled, so we are sitting down with the contractor here in the next few weeks. We will have more dates to come with getting that started, and so I'll be able to have a kickoff meeting then once we get that scheduled and completed. The residential resurfacing, almost all of the roads have been resurfaced. There's still a lot of drive aprons that have not been completed. They will go back and do those. And then we have some concrete repairs that are still, they haven't kicked off yet. We're doing up in the Heatherwood area. So there's a couple of intersections up there. We're waiting on some numbers to come back from Perrin to get the concrete repairs in a couple of intersections up there. Other than that, I think you touched on pretty much everything else. Does anybody have any other questions? Yes.
Go ahead, Mr. Heidi.
Thank you, Chair. I know hiccups can happen, but is there an estimated completion date for State Street Worcester Road?
I can get that back to you. I don't have that off the top of my head. Because again, progress is being made.
Right.
You know, the water lines took a little longer. We had to do some line stops because following that water main up there, it's 14-inch main, one of the oldest ones in town. It's one of the feeders that comes down through there. Our valves were so far apart, we had to do what's called a line stop, which is essentially a temporary valve in order to do the tie-overs. Now there's permanent valves where the line stops were in place. And again, I'm talking high-level technical terms here, but so that took a little bit longer because you can't just get on the phone and say, hey, I need a line stop today, because those are scheduled out. So it took, I think, it was 3 to 4 weeks to to get that scheduled to come in so that we could tie into the old line and install the new line and get everything tied over. So again, there's all kinds of, like you said, hiccups that you can run into. So I can definitely get you a date or an estimated date.
Guesstimated date.
Yes, estimate, yes.
Guesstimated.
Yes. Thank you,
So
Chair.
again,
Thank
progress is being made.
Yes,
So,
yes.
thank you,
it
Director.
is.
Thank you, Chair.
Any other questions from council members or from my committee? No? No? No other questions from anybody in the audience? No? Okay. With that, do I have a motion to adjourn? Mrs. Bailey, second. Mr. Griffin, and we are adjourned at 6:24 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Angela. Next up, Environmental Health and Social Services with Mrs. Bailey.
Thank you, Mr. President. It is September 5th, 6:25 p.m. We are in council chambers. All members are present, with my council's chair, Mr. Jaber, and Mrs. Angela. All other council members are present, and then all guests are noted on my sheet. We have no topics of requested legislation or pending legislation, but I do have an update from Andy from MAD. I had talked to him just about how the mosquito spraying and whatnot is going. They did release a public statement. They've sent out 16,000 mosquitoes to be tested, and 6 of those have came back in our area positive for West Nile. They did list which wards they came from as well. That's public record on their website. And we are at 1% positive, and he said it is much lower than the rest of the state. There's been over 700 positive mosquitoes, I hope I'm saying that right, in the state of Ohio as of when we talked. So, but that is, they're pretty good about putting on their websites their public statements, so just an update on that. Any other miscellaneous discussion from the committee? Anyone else?
It was nice to see the truck in the parade.
Oh, yes.
I had a lot of people go, "What is MAD? What is MAD?" You know?
Yes.
Because it's, how old is MAD now? 15, 20 years? 20 years? Yeah, it was nice to have them in the parade.
Anything else? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I will second that.
We are adjourned at 6:27 p.m. With that, I pass.
Thank you, Mrs. Bailey. Next up, Planning, Annexation, and Codes with Mrs. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to bring the Planning, Annexation, and Codes Committee to order. It is Tuesday, September 5th, 6:27 p.m. here in council chambers. All members of the committee are present, which includes myself as chair, Mrs. Angeloff, Mr. Jaber, and President Greer. All other council members are also present, as well as guests noted on my agenda sheet. We have one new request for legislation, a letter from Stacy Carr, strategic planner, requesting legislation allowing the mayor, via the planning director, to submit a business application for tax incentives on behalf of Eberhardt Landscaping and Lawn Services for a 100% 15-year tax abatement for the business expansion and improvements to 5205 New Haven Circle in Barberton. One reading and emergency wording is requested. That should all be attached, and this will be referred to finance. This expansion would allow Mr. Eberhardt to add up to 3 more full-time employees and up to an additional 15 seasonal employees within the next 3 years. And this was approved unanimously by the school board. Are there any questions or comments regarding this piece of legislation? Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Was there any plans provided for reconstruction or additions to the building? Or is this solely for new jobs?
So this will actually be for a new structure. This is going to be a building that's not going to be climate controlled, but it's meant to consolidate all of the company's equipment on one property to be able to store that safely.
Okay. I was just wondering, because that's a requirement for the CCA.
Yeah, a new construction.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yep. Hearing no other questions?
I did.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I'm still looking at it. New construction, in addition to what he has there, it's going to be a separate construction, a separate building, or,
It'll be a completely separate building.
and how many square foot is that going to be?
I don't have the number in front of me, but I can get that information to you. It's going to take up most of the back portion of the property.
That's what I was wondering, the back.
Are there any other questions from council members? Any from the gallery? Hearing none, can I have a motion to call for this?
I will make a motion to call for that.
Thank
I'll
you.
second it.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Alrighty, we have no current pending legislation, so I will open this up for miscellaneous. Mr. Worsler, if you have any updates for us?
Just that we're going like crazy with CDBG and spending the money down from our 2022 cycle. You'll notice improvements being made at Decker Park, quite a bit of sidewalk replacement, and we're also getting ready to install a pretty large flood mitigation project off of South Van Buren. So we're working diligently to spend the money down. We anticipate receiving the next cycle of money probably in October of this year.
Thank you. Any other miscellaneous for planning?
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Charlton?
Sound like that might be my topic?
Yes, sir.
Sure.
I've talked to several residents in the city and kind of talked me into coming in and trying to present something, so hopefully it sounds coherent. No promises. Okay, so regarding, like I said, house condemnations through the city for homes, we see the homes being condemned for seemingly any reason they can find, including not consuming electricity and water. The inspectors have admitted that they are checking meters, and if there's no consumption, they're assuming utilities have been disconnected and issuing a condemnation order based on that. They're using the International Property Maintenance Code, which is really interesting. You guys should read it. States that the house been provided with electrical system and that equipment, wiring, appliances have been properly installed. It doesn't say anything about the services actually being turned on. But we go to the water supply rule. It does say that water has to be supplied, but it doesn't give any consideration for repairs, renovations, remodeling. We know some of these houses are older. They need repairs. They need upgrades. They need updates. Homeowners feel like they should have the ability to remove what is necessary to complete all the work needed without fear of the city showing up. It's just in an inopportune time, and then deciding that too much work is needed, and then they want to condemn the house because it's missing the water. During 2020, 2021, a lot of homeowners were forced to move out of the area to find work. They put away the unplugged appliances, turned off water and gas valves to prevent leaks and waste. Some of these homeowners were attempting to find reliable contractors to complete necessary repairs. We know that goes. So we also concerned about the homeowners who fell on hard times, can't afford to pay the bill. If they can't get it turned on in time, how does that work out? As far as the notices and appeals, once it's posted on the house that there's an issue, they've got 10 days to file their appeal. Demolition then is stated also that could take place in as little as 30 days from the date of that notice. So as soon as that notice goes up, they've got 10 days to file appeal, theoretically 30 days to the house can be torn down. If the appeal is not filed within 10 days, the homeowner has no other legal recourse. Courts have strictly said if you don't file appeal within 10 days, you're done. How does this affect snowbirds who unplug their appliances and turn on the main lines when they spend 3 months or more down in Florida? People are, speculating, slippery slope, but however, they come back to a vacant lot, but their houses haven't been torn down because they weren't there to file the appeal and notice it. I've actually asked the attorney for the city, outside counsel, for a list of all the houses that currently waiting demolition, and he'd state there is no list. The city doesn't maintain a list of the houses that are on the list for being demolished, which I find interesting because, what stops that from the home, just speculation, what stops the homeowners from just pulling a notice off and it doesn't happen. So, like I said, I've talked to a lot of homeowners that have these issues. They wanted that brought up, and hopefully I didn't sound too bad trying to present their kind of side of the concern of what's happening with the planning department with some of these homes. In fairness, I've been out looking at the houses. There are a few homes that are being condemned for really good reason. Some of them I feel like because they're missing some utilities, but some of them have potential buyers. So maybe some leniency was going that way, but we're not seeing that right now.
Chair, if I may.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think it's, I understand what you're saying. Yep, what you just said. I don't know if we're going to be able to answer that right now, but what we can do is get with the planning department and have Mrs. Thompson. Oh, okay.
Are you done? Sorry.
I'll let counsel.
Mrs. Angela?
I'd like to make a comment on that, because I don't know, when you said "we," I don't know who we are that you had talked to.
Sure.
But being in this business as long as I have, and probably get chuckles from some of the audience, it took 6 years for me to get a house torn down, because you do everything you have to, you do, and I worked in the law department with Mrs. Miller, and you go to the courts, and you tell them, you have this, the courts give them 30 days. Then they give another 30 days, and then they give them 45 days, or they don't show up for court, and whatnot. And when you're looking at utilities, we do a thorough check on utilities and see who's living there, if the water bills are on, if there's anything of that sort. So I don't know, this information, because I think you need to sit down and talk to the planning department to understand how long it takes. I have other council members that will agree with me. It's not 30 days, and it's not 10 days or 15 days. Sometimes it takes years, especially if people are living there.
You're not wrong about that, but once the notice goes up, if the homeowner doesn't file the appeal within 10 days, they will never be allowed to stay in that house. It will be put down as fast as the city gets.
I don't know about the 10-day thing. I'm not an attorney, so I would have to.
I can get you the court case if you want to see it.
Yeah, you don't have to. Listen, I've seen lots of these. Let me tell you.
I agree with you.
But it sounds as though that they don't have electric, they don't have water. We're going to slap a red tag on it and tear the house down. It's so lengthy. The process is so lengthy. You can't imagine, because it goes, sir. It goes to the judge. Our prosecutors take that with the building inspector and goes to the judge. Now, if the judge says give them another 30 days, then what do? You give them another 30. They come. If the judge says, well, he's trying, we went out and looked and he replaced a window, we'll give him another 30 days. Then they'll say, well, he fixed the spotting, we'll give him another 45 days. That all comes from the judge. That's what we do what we have to do. And I have a notebook of one house that was all of the notifications, all the violations. And it kept on going to a judge, and it kept on being extended. Finally, the prosecutors are at their wits' end to say, look at this. Then they condemn that house. So it's not A to Z, it's A, B, C, D, E. There's a lot of paperwork. So just to get that out openly and publicly, we don't go around tearing down houses because you're 60 days behind on your water bill. We don't do that.
And I just wanted to add, I apologize, you spoke very fast, so I may have missed this. Have you spoken to our planning director or anybody in the building department regarding this?
I've tried to speak to the planning department, they won't talk to me, and the outside counsel has told me that he's not willing to deal with it, that houses I've called him about are going to be torn down and there's no discussion. I had one even tried to tell me that the city was going to try to prevent the homeowner from selling the property.
Okay.
You want the email, I'll give it, so I'll send it to you.
Sorry, I think Mr. Heidick was next, sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, it's fine.
Yes, you need to. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I think council and the administration have seen over the past few years that I've been fighting, even with the CDBG budget, to up the amount of money for demolitions because they take so long. Now, you've stated that there is no list kept of demolitions and all that. I firmly have to disagree because our former planning director, Mr. Hunt, I have approached him, Ms. Carr, director, I don't know if you were in the office at the time, but I was so adamant about getting more money that I said, how many houses are slated to be demolished? And they named double digits, to which I told them, if I don't see 10 torn down the next year, we're going to have some issues with the CDBG budget because I don't want to hear there's not money to tear down these blighted houses. On top of that, when we do condemn houses, I've seen the ones we've condemned, I've seen the states they're in. You know, I sympathize with homeowners that need to make repairs, but at the same time, when we condemn a house, when are we going to start saying the owner let it get to that state? Why do we have to step in? If we come in and say this house needs condemned, we're not doing it because the paint's peeling off the wall. We're doing it because the wall is falling off the wall. It is not safe for human habitation. There's a structure down the street that's not safe for human habitation, and yet there is, because our police have hearts, our city have hearts. The building's condemned, but we're not over there turning off utilities and dragging them out of their houses. You know, there is a legal process that we have to follow, but do you really think that our police officers, if we told them, go in there, grab these people by the neck and pull them out and tell them it's not safe to live there, are going to do that? I don't think there's one officer on this force that would do that. But at some time, we have to hold these owners accountable that if you let a building get that way and you say, well, I'm going to sell it. No, I'm sorry, I'll curse here. No, the hell you're not, because the owner's going to inherit problems that he can't fix. And why would he buy a building that he can't fix? And we run the whole circle around. In the meantime, we have people living in squalor. They're being overcharged by landlords for squalor, bed bugs, roaches. Some of these places we have to have torn down. Forget lead abatement, we have to bring the damn EPA into them. Like I said, as far as like the lists and everything, the planning department has them because I purposely told them I would hold the things up if there wasn't going to be some action on these.
Right.
I probably should
Thank you, Chair.
hire outside counsel, because I still have the email from Herb Sugarman at Rouse McDowell who says the city does not maintain a list. I can show it to you if you want.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not here to debate with you. I
Oh.
apologize if I sound like I'm arguing with any of you.
Oh, it's okay. Mrs. Miller.
Yeah. So, Mr. Charlton made a public records request for a list. We don't maintain a list of homes that he requested. You asked for a number of houses that were going to be demolished. We had that number the year that you requested, which was when Mr. Hunt was here. He isn't here, and he hasn't been here for almost a year. So that's what you had asked for, and you got that number, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's not what Mr. Charlton requested. He asked for a list of homes. We don't have a list. So those are two different things.
I do believe I've seen a list of homes that are going to be demolished, correct, Mr. Worsler?
The department has a list of, Stacy Carr, who in our office handles the demolition, does have an active list that she's working on at that moment in time.
Mm-hmm.
But it's more of a series of folders of projects that she knows she is actively dealing with.
Sure. Okay, Mrs. Bailey.
Thank you. Okay. What sparked this? Do you own a property? Do you own rental property? What sparked you diving into this?
I'm an attorney. I've had clients come to me with these issues.
Do you live in the city too?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Yeah, but no, I'm not a landlord. I agree with him. If you've got slumlords, man, please go after them. You know, I've actually gotten a lot of calls from landlords who are complaining about the rules on landlords. I'm like, yeah, well, you know, how many slumlords has it taken before government caught up and fix some of the problems? This is more. I've had, you know, a few homeowners come up, and again, I've driven through the city too, looking specifically for this, as I've had a few people come to me with saying, hey, the city's going to tear my house down. And, you know, my response to some of them, well, yeah, they notified you a year ago. Where the hell were you for the last year? You know, but the ones who missed it by a certain period of time is a little bit different. But no, they asked me, you know, I've had a few of them that, you know, they're out of frustration. Like, the city's trying to knock my house down. I'm trying to work on it. You know, the last few years it's been hard to find people to do work. Everybody's been scared and hiding in their houses, you know. So you can't find contractors to come out and work. The federal government was paying them to sit at home, so people were having trouble getting their houses fixed up. And then by the time they find somebody, the problem's gotten worse, because it sounds like you know a lot about this. You know, rot tends to get worse. You know, once the foundation of the house starts to go with the wood supports, especially, as soon as it starts rotting, it gets worse and worse and worse. So I've had a few people come to me with these issues. So I thought I'd bring it up to the city to look at, you know, some way of handling differently when they condemn a house, when they allow the homeowners to come back and perhaps rehab it. Because there is actually, if the homeowner makes it within the 10-day time, there's supposed to be a process for them showing up with, rehab plan and whatnot. After the 10 days, the planning department and like I said, the outside counsel basically just told us, counsel, they're not willing to talk about it if we didn't file appeal on it one time. But no, he's right. I've looked around a few, and there are some houses that they are badly need. If kids go in there and start hanging out, or I've heard stories that I don't know that are true about people using these places to get high in. They're in there, the house could easily fall down. There's one of them that I found that, the back half of the house is almost completely burned. I'm surprised it's still standing. So obviously, the planning department's trying to catch the ones who need to be taken out.
Do you mind me asking, are you representing this gentleman that's standing back here? Is that what
Yeah,
you're
Mr.
speaking
White's one of the
for?
gentlemen, yeah.
Okay, so that's who you're speaking for. Is it your property?
Him
Oh, okay.
and a couple others. Well, his specific situation is actually a little bit interesting. He actually inherited a house that had already been condemned. So we approached the planning department. He found an investor who wants to buy it out. He actually has another plan, and we tried to approach planning department and say, we have some ideas for this house, but it was condemned before he took ownership. It was a mess with probate court. I think what happened is whoever handled his probate estate didn't know what the hell they were doing. Excuse me. So he basically inherited a house that was condemned.
When they posted the house.
Sir, I'm sorry, we can't hear you. You'll have to come to the microphone and state your name and address, please.
Chair, keep in mind, you're running up on your time.
Yeah.
But before, I will say this, before council speaks any more about this, council needs to understand it. So we need to know the process, procedures, legally, and what it is and what we're currently doing. Because right now, we're just hearing this.
Sure.
But it doesn't help just to ramble.
Sure, we'll
here,
give you
so.
we'll give you 1 moment to speak, but I will just say that you need to follow up with the planning department yourself.
They won't get with me at all. They said the only thing I could do is get a stay from the judge, and it's past the time. So they said, sorry for your luck, return it down. And they basically got rude with me. I only talked to the woman twice.
And you've been to Board of Zoning and Building Appeals?
I got him, talked to him, and I talked to him on the phone, because I live in Lower Salem, Ohio. My name's Ken White.
What's the address?
345 South Van Buren.
And I'm sorry, state your name one more time.
Kenneth White.
Thank you.
When they first posted it, they posted it for the yard being not mowed and the smell from the dogs my nephew had in the house. So
Okay.
I took, and they told my nephew he couldn't go back in the house. So as soon as that, they told him that, I came up and got a contractor, and he gutted the place.
I understand. Thank you for coming today. You will have to follow up with our planning department.
Yeah, we can't legally, we're listening to this for the first
Yeah.
time, but we're also under time constraints.
Thank you.
But we can make sure you follow up.
Yep.
Right? We're not sending you out the door.
Okay. Thank you.
Is he able to speak? Yep. Mr. Griffin.
I'm aware of that property. I know the neighbors that live across the street from that property. They had to have their house fumigated because the roaches and the bed bugs crossed the street. Raccoons are living in that house now. They look out the window at you while you're looking at them. Okay? That house should have been torn down, I don't know how many years ago, because they never did nothing to it. I even tried to help them with the grass, but they told me I needed, if I gave them gas money, they'd cut the grass. But anyway, I disagree with you on that, because that property needs to be condemned. I don't know how the bones are in it, but it's been an eyesore and a pain in my ward for years. And the best thing for it to happen to that house, for it to be demolished. That's all I have to say.
Again, council, we can't legally do anything with council. That's why we need to know the process.
Thank you. Are there any other comments for miscellaneous discussion for planning? Hearing none, can I have
make a motion?
Thank you. In a second. Thank you. We're adjourned at 6:48.
Thank you, Mrs. Thompson. Next up is City Properties, Parks and Recreation, Mr. Jaber.
Thank you, Mr. President. City Properties, Park Recreation, meeting December 5th, 6:48. Council Chambers, myself as chair, Mr. Heidick and Mrs. Fry was committee, and all council members also present and guests noted. We have no new requests for legislation. We have no pending, and I'll open it up to miscellaneous. And we do have the Parks Director back there. If you can't speak up on the updates on the parks and what's going on with the security cameras, is there any updates on those? Thank you.
Yeah, there's several updates going on. I just left Barberton Park, that tennis court just got completed. And you can get the parent come in and close up the gates with all painting and nets. Are finished with that. First half of the security cameras are almost done. We're a few weeks away from that. They started the pickleball courts. They'll be painting those at the end of this month. So early October, they'll be playable. So everything's in motion. We're moving forward. The skate park, the concrete pad was paid for that. So everything's in motion.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate it. Any other miscellaneous discussion? Mrs. Thompson?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say how wonderful the Labor Day Festival was. There were so many activities for families, and the multiple times that I was down there, everybody was getting along. There were no problems, and it just was a really great time. And personally, my kids loved the fishing derby, even though we didn't catch anything. So I just wanted to say thank you for, all the hard work that anybody in this room had put into that. So that's all.
Thank you. Any other miscellaneous discussion? All right, seeing none, motion to adjourn, please.
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Heidick, Mrs. Fry, we adjourn at 6:50, and that I pass, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Jaber. Next up is Public Welfare and Safety with Mrs. Fry.
Thank you, Mr. President. Public Welfare and Safety is being brought to order at 6:49 p.m. on Monday, September the 5th, 2023. All members of the committee are present, with me being chair. Mr. Griffin and Joyce Coburn are members of the committee. All council members are also present, as well as guests that are noted on my sheet. We have a couple of requests for legislation. The first being a letter from Jamie Eisman, the Director of Public Service, requesting legislation to update and assure compliance in the municipal parking lots, Chapter 355. Emergency wording has been requested, and I believe everyone got a copy of how the lots will be laid out and who can park where. Does anyone have any questions about this piece of legislation? Mr. Heidick?
Thank you, Chair. If I may ask the Director of Public Safety for the clarification on one of these letters?
Are you asking if you can ask her?
Yes.
Go ahead.
It's just there you are. You're usually right there. I didn't know if you left. Under G, it says the semi-trucks, boats, trailers, food trucks, commercial vehicles prohibited from parking unless authorized by the Director of Public Safety. Is there an application process, and if so, how is that determined whether those are allowed there, and is there a time limit, anything like that?
There's not an application, no.
So how would one go about getting the authorization?
Contact me.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Do you have any other comments, Mrs. Eisman? Okay. Hearing no comments or questions, do I have a motion to call for this particular piece of legislation? Motion made by Mrs. Coburn and seconded by...
He did.
Oh, he did? Okay, seconded by Mr. Griffin. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. It passes unanimously. The second piece of legislation that was requested is a letter from Steve Iono, Chief of the Barberton Fire Department, requesting a resolution to honor and commend Fireman William J. Hogue. Emergency wording was requested, and it is noted that his retirement party will be September the 8th. I believe everyone got a copy of what will be in the resolution as well.
18th.
No,
yes.
18th? The 18th, September the 18th is his retirement party. Does anyone have any questions about this piece of legislation? No? Okay, hearing none. Do I have a motion to call for this?
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Griffin and seconded by Mrs. Coburn. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. I don't believe we have any pending legislation, but does anyone have anything that they would like to discuss in miscellaneous discussion?
Thank you. I have a resident that lives on Worcester Road, has some concerns about Metro, the bus stop. She wanted to speak about it. She's here right now.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, hello. I'm Laura Travis. I live at 607 Worcester Road West. Been in the home 35 years. Recently, Metro bus from Akron put a bus stop right in front of my home. I recently lost my husband of 45 years, and I live there with 3 grandchildren by myself. And I know all kinds of people ride the Metro bus. I understand that. But they're dropping off and picking up right at the end of my sidewalk. And honestly, I'm scared, for I'm alone now. I'm just asking the city or someone. I called to talk to the safety director. They put me through to the mayor's office. I spoke to Vanessa. They did not connect me with the safety director to explain. And they told me to call the Metro busing. They won't do anything for me. And there's a whole empty block across the street from the fire station or down towards 7th Street. Is there any way somebody could please, with my councilman trying to help me, our family, to move that bus stop right out of our front door? Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Travis?
Sure. Thank you for coming in.
Mr. Gray?
Thank you, Chair. I had, this is for Councilman Jaber. I had two incidences like this. I reached out to, the Metro, but they were very accommodating, at least when I did it. So, yeah, Metro and I believe it was the service director at the time. I think Mike Vinay was in.
Yeah, I reached out to Metro twice and
you can go through the city. They have direct connections through.
We'll do that.
But.
Now, if you go on the map, there's no signage, there's no stop on the internet. On the website, it hasn't been updated yet, so a lot of people have been looking up at it. Me and Mr. Heidick were looking at it earlier, and their updated webpage does not show that bus stop yet on that page. So I think Metro's still confused. We call them up and let them know where it's at, and they know what we're talking about. No, right, Mr. Heidick, the webpage.
Mr. Heidick?
Thank you, Sarah. When I looked up the Metro, the stop isn't listed, but from what it seems, if this helps anybody who gets in contact with Metro to try to alleviate this goes through the administration wells. It looks like it's either Route 14, the Barberton Euclid Express, or the Route 8, Barberton Kenmore. Their map isn't really too well, but I don't know if it helps to know which route it is if anybody was able to get in contact.
I've never had this problem before, but I would think that you have to deal with Metro. And I don't know if Mrs. Eisman would...
This is the first I've heard of it. I just gave her my business card and
Okay.
be in touch.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Oh, Mrs. Angela. Past experience, I think if you call the Metro and maybe set up a meeting or explain the situation, everything now is aerial, they can see everything, that they've always been very accommodating on moving it if it's an inconvenience or a threat to anybody. So I don't know, if you can call them yourself or if Mrs. Eisen can call them and see if that could be moved. And she's given her card, so we'll update on that later. Thank you. Does anyone else have any other issues? or questions or comments?
Not issues.
Mrs.
I
Or
just-
comments?
Yeah. I just wanted to say that I found out recently, like many of us in this room, that we have acquired a police canine.
Yes.
Found that out on Facebook, so that's awesome. Learned more details about that tonight, but I just didn't know if you had some information you'd like to share with everybody about that.
No, I do not.
Oh.
No.
I have a question.
I found out on Facebook as well.
What was the tone about why you found out on Facebook?
I just,
What was that?
I think it's something that's very exciting for us, and I think it's something that should have been put out there before it did. However,
We've had them before.
However, I learned today
Okay.
that the reason why that is, and I just thought it was something that's great and that should be shared. So
We've had canines in the past. In fact, we've only been without one for a while. Mrs. Eisman, I heard you wanted to speak.
Do you want me to go again?
Yeah.
Thank you. You know, there was a lot of training that had to go into being prepared for this, and to put something out would be, you know, when that officer hasn't completed their training, we want to make sure everything works out. It is a very exciting thing. I like how it was rolled out, everything together. We had a swearing-in ceremony for ISO. It was a great event where we all got to come together. We've had a dog before. We're very excited. This was a fully trained dog. So the only thing that we had to do was send our officer to training. So, any other questions about that?
No, but thank you for sharing.
Just to clarify for everybody, and how much did this cost the city?
I really don't know. The training for the
No,
Texas?
I mean, the dog and the cruiser, the companies.
Well, the dog was free.
Mhm.
The cruiser, we already had in budget to have to get a cruiser. It just got converted to a canine by getting the outfitted on the inside. And I don't know how much the training class was. I mean, I could get that to you later if you would like.
But it was scant compared to a brand new cruiser and starting a
absolutely.
K9
I
from
mean,
zero.
That vehicle, I believe it came from Magic City Motor Cars, a used vehicle. I don't even know if the insert was even new. I think it was from another one that got transferred. Tried to be very, you know, save money as best as possible, but yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Eisman. Does anyone else have any other questions or comments? Hearing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Mrs. Coburn and seconded by Mr. Griffin. And we are adjourned at 7:04 PM.
Thank you, Mrs. Fry. Next up is Rules Marketing Development, Mr. Griffin.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to call this meeting to order. Rules Marketing Development. Today is September 5th. We are meeting in council chambers. All our members are present and all others noted. Tonight we have no requests for legislation. Do we have anything for rules or miscellaneous from the body or the gallery? Hearing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Oh, thank you, Mrs. Thomas.
I will second that.
Thank you. We are adjourned at 7:02. With that, I pass.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. City Utilities, Mrs. Coburn.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to call the city utilities to order at September 5th, 2023, 7:05. All members of the committee, which is myself as chair, Carol Fry and Erica Bailey. All others are noted on my sheet. We have one letter from Michael Tiadecki, city engineer, requesting legislation to allow the mayor to apply for funding opportunities, including but not limited to ODNR H2 Ohio PWM, HMGP, and other such funding. Emergency wording is requested. The request was, this is to facilitate timeliness in keeping the project moving. The project is a good fit for state funding opportunities. This was he's not telling me exactly what he wants.
Money.
He wants money. He wants other people besides the city, but this is for doing the work that we're doing all over the city.
Yeah, it's just for funding opportunities
Yeah,
for
to
a number
apply-
of issues.
To apply for money. Normally, they tell me it's for the water department or something, but this time he just wants it all. And I can't argue that point. If they can get it on a grant, then it saves the city. So I don't have good answers. If somebody wants to ask me, I'll call him at
He's
home
not here.
and have him come in.
This is just to apply for the funding.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, I'll call for it.
Okay,
And I will second it.
okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Then we have a letter from Dennis Weaver, Utilities Director, requesting legislation authorizing a change order in the amount of $237,290.67 with North Bay Construction emergency wording requested. This is to do with the water treatment plant, that they had to have something else done that they didn't have covered, so they asked for a change order. It was chosen through an open bid May 21st. Yes, sir.
I was gonna say, if you'd like, I can explain a little bit.
Help.
So what this is this is for a water fill station. So we currently sell water from the wastewater treatment plant. Right now, we are tied onto a fire hydrant. We use a backflow and a meter. What this is this is actually an automated system that's going to help with keeping track of gallons used. It's going to offer two different fills. It's an overhead fill and a nozzle to plug into the front. The money was appropriated to repair the sludge tanks. Those repairs ended up, we took the top off the first tank, they evaluated the concrete, they realized that they didn't have to remove the top off the second tank. So we were able to save those funds. So all we are doing is reappropriating this money to go towards the water fill station, which brings us up into EPA compliance, it's not that we're out of compliance, the EPA strongly suggests that we go this direction with an overhead fill instead of something that plugs into a fire hydrant. So we're just working towards becoming more compliant.
That's what happens when you give us a month off. Are there any?
It'll be a very nice feature to have down there. It'll help with some of the accounting and that kind of stuff.
Are there any other questions? Yes, Mr. Greer?
Thank you, Chair. Just real quick, this is for the director. We sell water. Do you know what roughly the revenue for that is annually?
I don't. I can try to find that number out for you. The other thing that it does, it actually helps with the health of our system. So we've got a 12-inch main that travels down South Van Buren to our water treatment plant. Our water treatment plant uses a lot of processed water down there, but by selling the water and being able to do it year-round, it continues to keep the water lines flowing, and it helps prevent buildup. So I mean, it's a twofold. I'm not going to say that we make millions on selling water, but it does help the health of our system too.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Anyone else?
I'll make a motion.
You're calling for it?
Yeah, I'm gonna make a motion.
Carol Fry and then Erica Bailey second. All in favor?
Aye.
We have no pending legislation. Is there any miscellaneous discussion for utilities? Hearing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I will make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
We are adjourned at 7:13.
Thank you, Mrs. Coburn. Last but not least, Finance Personnel, Mr. Hyden.
Thank you, Mr. President. Finance Personnel, it is 7:09, Tuesday, September 5th, 2023. We are here in council chambers. The committee is present, which consists of Councilors Coburn, Thompson, President Greer, myself as chair, all others noted. All right, so we're going to dive right in. First request, referred from planning. Letter from Stacy Carr, strategic planner, requesting legislation allowing the mayor via the planning director to submit a business application for tax incentives on behalf of Eberhart Landscaping and Lawn Services Incorporated for 100% 15-year tax abatement for the business expansion/improvements to 5205 New Haven Circle in Barberton. One reading and emergency wording requested. Has anybody thought of any more questions in the last half hour? Seeing none, do I have a motion to call for this?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. Those in favor?
Aye.
Next up, a letter from Lisa Kolish-Miller, Law Director, requesting legislation to appropriate $2,000 from the unappropriated item of the Law Enforcement Trust Fund to the operation and maintenance budget of the Law Department. Director, this is for laptop computers, correct?
Yes, she just.
She just stepped down. Well, everybody, it's for laptop computers, so, any questions?
Nope.
Do I have a motion to call for this?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. Those in favor?
Aye.
Next, a letter from Jeremy Flaker, Finance Director, requesting a resolution authorizing the advance of local taxes by the County Fiscal Office for the 2023 tax year payable in 2024. Emergency wording requested. This is standard and necessary. Does anybody have any questions on this? Do I have a motion to call for this?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. Those in favor?
Aye.
Next, a letter from Jeremy Flaker, Finance Director, requesting a resolution accepting the rates and amounts of property tax as determined by the Summit County Budget Commission for 2024. Emergency wording requested. Once again, necessary and routine. Any questions?
Sure.
Mr. President.
Just out of curiosity, this is more for the director and me more being, what if we say no?
Director?
They just raise the taxes. And assuming they need our permission, then we can stop it.
That's a great
This is just
question.
Pure curiosity here.
Good question. Honestly, I'm not sure. I think they need this resolution for us to get our property tax money. So probably without it being passed, we wouldn't get any property tax.
That's a good answer.
That's a good
Thanks
answer.
for hostage.
Thank you, Director. Thank you, Chair.
Any other questions, comments? Do I have a motion to call for this?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President.
I'll second.
Thank you. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Making.
Next, a letter from Katie Reed, Clerk of Barberton Municipal Court, requesting legislation approving a payment not to exceed $7,000 to U.S. Bank Equipment Finance. Emergency wording requested. Did everybody see the request there? With the copier? Are there any questions?
Nope.
Do I have a motion to call for this?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Thank you, and thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
And finally, for requests, letter from Stacy Carr, Strategic Planning, Planner, Barberton Planning Department, requesting legislation to approve an invoice payable to Insight Advisory Group LLC for services provided for the economic development in the amount of $3,500 dated prior to the purchase order. One reading and emergency wording requested. Are there any comments here? Do I have a motion to call for this?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That does it for the requests. Next up, Director Flaker, do you care to entertain us with July of 2023?
All right, starting with the health insurance fund for July of 2023, the revenues for the month were just shy of $407,000. Our expenditures were just shy of $384,000. That's roughly a positive $20,000 to the good. Our net year-to-date, though, for the healthcare fund is, at the end of July, was a negative $90,000 net year-to-date. But we're slowly climbing out of that hole. A lot of that had to do with the healthcare holiday at the beginning of the year. So, moving on to the income tax. Our estimate for the month was $1,007,000. Our actuals came in at $1,425,000. We are over our estimate by about $1.9 million. Part of that is in the budget I planned on, because all the talk at the end of last year was recession this year. So I didn't want to go all crazy with our revenues with the threat of a recession on our hands. Looking at the income tax, I'm trying to see where we were same time last year, what's up, what's down. Our income tax is up from last year. The two driving forces is net profits and withholdings are the two. Individuals is up slightly, not a big, huge amount. And then the JED with the City of Norton, that is up as well. So everything is up, but the two big driving forces, I want to say we were about 1.6 million up from last year at the same time. The big driving forces, 1.2 million is between withholdings and net profits. Net profits, you just have to watch with them, because sometimes businesses, if they're anticipating a lot of growth or something, they may pay a large estimate in their net profit, but then turn around, maybe they didn't hit their goals that they wanted, and we might have to turn around and refund that money. It's happened in the past to where we've had to issue a large refund to a business because they estimated high when they actually did their whole year in that. We had to refund that money. So why it's up, it's good. Just make note that we could have to pay some of that out if a business in town is paying a bunch in estimates and they don't meet their anticipated goals. So, transfers for the month, we did 1.3 million to the general fund. At the end of July, that left us with 3 million left to transfer from the income tax fund. Hoping maybe by the end of October to finish up the transfers for this year. That way, what we receive in November and December can help towards the budget for next year. So far, so good with income tax this year. Moving on to the statement of cash receipts for the month of July. Few funds in the negative, and they're the usual funds. The FEMA fund, that's the FEMA fund for the flood mitigation for 14th, 15th, and Arthur. I want to say I think Arthur is completed. I think we only have 14th and 15th Street left. So once we expend that money, we can seek reimbursement from the federal government on that. The CDBG fund, the federal HUD program, once again, we spend the money, we can put in the request to draw down on that. And then the last fund in the negative is Fund 660, the health insurance fund, and that is only in the negative due to encumbrances outstanding. At the end of July, you'll notice it's negative about 24,000. With the normal growth of that fund every month, I haven't looked at the council, I haven't looked at the month-end report yet for September, but I would have to say that is out of the negative at the end of August. So we should be out of the hole there. Moving on to the last 3 months of activity, you'll notice the general fund did increase slightly by about 400,000. A lot of that just has to stem from our disbursements being down compared to last month, but also we received our advancement for the second half of property tax. So that is also driving some of the receipts being up higher from the previous month. Special revenue funds stayed about the same. Enterprise funds went up, partly due to encumbrances outstanding going down, but you'll also notice the expenditures are also down a lot from last month. It was almost 2.4 last month, well, a little over 2.4 last month. This past, in the month of July, it was 1.3. All other funds has increased. That's just doing its normal about 300,000, 400,000 increase every month. So that did its normal increase. Comparing July of last year to July of this year, general funds down about 3.7 million. It was June, July last year when we did the chargeback to the lost revenue funds of the ARPA to help to restrict those funds into the general fund. So some of that's getting drawn down from all the projects going on with the tennis courts and all that. Special revenue funds, that is down by about $1 million. Enterprise funds is about the same. All other funds is up by about 200,000. In all, the unencumbered cash balance from last year to this year, we're down about $5 million from last year. But that's all I have. Any questions?
Thank you, Director. Do I have a motion to call for the approval?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. Those in favor?
Aye.
Right, with that, is there any miscellaneous discussion from the committee? From the body? From the gallery? Director?
So I'd like to go back in time just a little bit. So you had asked about the bulk water bill, so I figured it's still relevant. We're talking about money.
By all means.
So we budgeted to collect $55,000 in bulk water. We've collected year to date $42,513.85, which is about 77.3% of what we budgeted. So we've collected just over 42,000 this year.
Thank you. Did I see another hand raised? By all means.
I listen to you guys on my computer or phone at home. And it is so hard to hear what you're saying. Amen. So I came here figuring it's got to be louder. It's not. Every one of you either are not using your microphone or are not speaking up, and that includes you, Mr. Hector. Baby. When you lean back in your seat, you can't hear you. And I don't know if it's the microphones or what it is, but I think that something should be done about it.
Can you hear me?
You wear a hearing aid, ma'am?
Well, I do apologize. I will do my best to lean forward to the microphone more.
I can't hear you back here.
Yeah, we'll look
Maybe
at
the
it.
fan.
We'll look at it.
Can you hear
me, Joyce?
Yeah.
Can you hear me, Joyce?
Can I hear you? Yeah, you I can hear. You evidently. Yeah, but everybody else, honestly, I thought, wow, well, these guys, yeah, they're coming from behind me. And it's irritating. Frustrating. We need to hear you. So we know exactly what you're saying.
Mr. President, will you
Yeah, we'll
check
look
into the issue?
We have microphones that I will be installing back here for the crowd, cameras facing towards the crowd, so you see who's talking. But we'll look into the system for online.
Well, she just turned the fan in the hallway.
Background noise is gone now, that's why. But still, I mean.
We'll look at it. We'll get it. And then I'm calling you. I'm going to get a hold of you. Say, how's that sound? All right. Thank you, though, for bringing it up. I know you will.
Mr. President, do we not have the loudspeaker, or the microphones up there now?
We
I mean,
do.
you said you're installing them,
No,
so.
actual microphones in the top for the back gallery
Okay,
when people are
so
talking back
that
there.
should probably help the problem?
Yeah, for the
Because
gallery.
we don't have any now, right?
No, not
Okay.
over there.
All right. There you go, Joyce.
Are there any other comments or anything? Seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. We are adjourned at 7:24.
All right, thank you, Mr. Heidick. That concludes our individual committee meetings. We're going to take a 10-minute break and then come back and start the committee of the whole.
Just for the rest.
Oh, no, that's like his uncle.
He looks like his grandpa.
Oh, he was driving the car?
Or nephew
See, I
or
didn't
something.
see it.
He was lost. He was
He's my
lost.
grandson.
He was lost.
Well, come on, my grandson.
Thank you, ma'am. Yep.
We back on? Alrighty.
These chairs are stupid.
All right, go ahead and please silence your cell phones and make sure your microphones are turned on.
Move it closer.
Check, check. All right, today's Tuesday, September 5th, 2023. This is Committee of the Whole meeting for Barberton City Council. I call this meeting to order at 7:40 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, citizens addressing council, there was none. We'll hop into our committee reports. Street, sidewalk, and lighting with Mrs. Angela.
Thank you, Mr. President. Street, sidewalk, and lighting met this evening at 6:17. All members of the committee were present, and all council members were present, and guests as noted on my sheet. I had no request for legislation at this time, no pending legislation, and in miscellaneous, I gave a report of the, some of the street projects, and Mr. Shreve followed up with the residential and other projects, and with that, I pass.
Thank you, Ms. Angela. Planning and Annexation Codes, Mrs. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Planning, Annexation, and Codes met this evening, September 5th at 6:27 here in council chambers. All members were present, including all of the council members and guests as noted on my sheet. We had one request for legislation, a letter from Stacy Carr, strategic planner, requesting legislation allowing the mayor via the planning director to submit a business application for tax incentives on behalf of Everhart Landscaping and Lawn Services Incorporated for a 100% 15-year tax abatement for the business expansion and improvements to 5205 New Haven Circle in Barberton. One reading and emergency wording is requested. This was referred to finance. We have no pending legislation, and for miscellaneous, our planning director, Pete Wursler, gave some updates regarding CDBG money, sidewalk updates, etc. We had two gentlemen speak, Jason Charlton and Kenneth White, regarding condemnation issues that they're having, and we adjourned at 6:48. With that, I will pass.
Thank you, Mrs. Thompson. City Utilities, Mrs. Coburn.
Thank you, Mr. President. City Utilities met this evening in council chambers at 7:05. All members were present and all other council members. All others are listed on my sheet. We had a request from a letter from Michael Tiadecki, city engineer, requesting legislation to allow the mayor to apply for funding opportunities, including but not limited to ODNR, H2O Ohio, PWM, HMGP, and other such funding. Emergency wording is requested, and that request was to get money from anywhere we can so that the bills can be paid by someone else. We had a letter from Dennis Weaver, Utilities Director, requesting legislation authorizing a change order in the amount of $237,293 and $293.67 with North Bay Construction. Emergency wording requested. This is for moving, they were able to save some money, so now they want to appropriate this money for another job. We had no pending legislation, no miscellaneous discussion. And with that, I pass.
Thank you, Mrs. Coburn. Public Welfare and Safety, Mrs. Frey.
Thank you, Mr. President. Public Welfare and Safety met this evening, Monday, September 5th, 2023, at 6:49. The location was in council chambers. All members of the committee were present, as well as all council members and guests, as noted on my agenda sheet. We had 2 requests for legislations this evening. The first was a letter from Jamie Eisman, the Director of Public Safety, requesting legislation to update and ensure compliance in the municipal parking lots. Chapter 355, emergency wording was requested, and it was unanimously passed to go to council. We also got a letter from Steve Iono, the chief of the Barberton Fire Department, requesting a resolution to honor and commend Fireman William J. Hogue. Emergency wording was requested, and Fireman Hogue's retirement party will be September the 18th. We had no pending legislation, and in miscellaneous discussion, Mrs. Laura Travis, who lives at Worcester Road West, has recently had a Metro bus stop put in the front of her home, and she is upset about this and scared for her safety. She had just lost her husband. Mrs. Eisman, our safety director, gave Mrs. Travis a card, and we're going to follow up on this. Mrs. Thompson shared info regarding the K-9, and Mrs. Eisman told the details of the cruiser being outfitted for the K-9, and that the dog was free, and the dog was already trained, and we had to train the officer. And with that, Public Welfare and Safety will pass. Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you, Mrs. Frey. Rules, Marketing, and Development, Mr. Griffin.
Mr. President, the July 24th meeting, did we do that already? The committee reports.
Yeah.
We did all
We did it before we went on recess.
We did that before we went on recess. Okay, thank you, Mr. President. Rules and Marketing Development, we met tonight, September 5th. We met in council chambers. All members were present and all guests noted. We had no legislation, and we adjourned at 7:02 with that update.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Environmental Health and Social Services, Mrs. Bailey.
Thank you, Mr. President. Environmental Health and Social Services met tonight in council chambers at 6:30 p.m. All members were present, all others noted on my sheet. There were no new topics of requested legislation or pending legislation. We did have a short miscellaneous discussion about MAD, and then we adjourned at 6:21 p.m. With that, I pass.
Thank you, Mrs. Bailey. City Properties, Parks, and Recreation, Mr. Jaber.
Thank you, Mr. President. City Properties Park Recreation met December 5th, 2023, 6:48 council chambers. All members are present. All the council also noted, and guests were noted. We had no new requests for legislation, no pending, and we had miscellaneous updates from Mr. Don Patterson, our Parks Director, and we adjourned at 6:15. With that, I pass, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Jaber. Finance and Personnel, Mr. Hedick.
Thank you, Mr. President. Finance and Personnel is calling for the following. Legislation allowing the mayor via the planning director to submit a business application for tax incentives on behalf of Everhart Landscaping and Lawn Services Incorporated for a 100% 15-year tax abatement for the business expansion/improvements to 5205 New Haven Circle in Barberton. One reading and emergency wording requested. Next is legislation to appropriate $2,000 from the unappropriated item of the Law Enforcement Trust Fund to the operation and maintenance budget of the Law Department for computers. Next is a resolution authorizing the advance of local taxes by the County Fiscal Office for the 2023 tax year, payable in 2024. Emergency wording requested. Next is a resolution accepting the rates and amounts of property tax as determined by the Summit County Budget Commission for 2024. Emergency wording requested. Next is legislation approving payment not to exceed $7,000 to U.S. Bank Equipment Finance. Emergency wording has been requested. Finally, legislation to approve an invoice payable to Insight Advisory Group LLC for services provided for economic development in the amount of $3,500 dated prior to the purchase order. One reading emergency wording requested. And we move to approve the finance report to the floor. With that, I pass.
Thank you, Mr. Heidick. That concludes our individual committee reports. Is there any remarks from council? Mr. Jaber?
Thank you, Mr. President. I usually send, because the holidays are coming up, Thanksgiving and Christmas, I usually send cards to other council members in different cities and trustees. I was wondering maybe next week we can take some big group picture. Since the last 3 years we have not taken a picture yet. If you guys want to come a little bit early, like 5:45 next week, we can do a group picture so we can send those cards out to neighboring cities. We're all in that picture. And it'll be next week if you guys want to come in a little bit early and take a picture. Thank you.
Well, that'll depend. They can't be forced, but.
No, not forced. Last 3 years I've not been forced, but.
Thank you.
This year if you want.
Is there anything else from council members? I do have something. So next week, September 11th, Patriot Day, is the next council meeting. Other than that, is there anything else from department heads? Chief, when is the service, the memorial service?
It'll be Monday morning.
Okay. So Monday morning at 9 a.m. Alrighty. And if nothing else from departments, council, mayor's report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Welcome back, council. A lot going on as we've discussed tonight since we recessed in August. Sometimes with some of the projects, and I'll get into some of those, but sometimes it's the things you don't see. So I'm kind of surprised that nobody brought up the lack of the blue trash can in the gallery here. I've been here longer than any of us.
Noticed that. The target is off.
The trash can is off. They're out of there. That sat there for all 4 seasons for several decades.
And the tarp.
So obviously the roof has been fixed. Still some work to do with the tiles and some inspection and cleanup and things like that. But we did not have a ceremony, but the trash can has been removed. So sometimes it's the things you don't see, right? I still see it. No one's comfortable sitting there. We'll work on that. So yeah, still some more work to happen on the roof there, but we're pretty much close to being done there. Other projects, as mentioned throughout council tonight, throughout town, many have been completed or being worked on right now or planned for the future. So that's the roads, the parks, water lines, sidewalks, storm sewers and stormwater mitigation, and some exciting programs that we're working on now that will be released soon. So a lot going on. Councilwoman Angela, thank you for talking about the roads and giving an update. No one mentioned, I don't believe, about the purple ADA ramps, so we were able to find those this year. Anytime we can increase community awareness or community pride when available, we'll do that. So we're pretty excited about those. To touch on Director Shreve's report on Worcester Road West, obviously he said there's a lot that's going on with the reconstruction versus just a resurfacing. Relocation of some utility lines and also some property acquisition, which doesn't always go as smooth as we'd like. With the South Van Buren Avenue project, also a reconstruction project, and both of these are long stretches of roadway, but also includes the relocation of gas lines as well. So sometimes you're at the mercy of some of these utility companies as well. So thank you to everyone who volunteered, participated in, or attended the Labor Day festivities this past weekend. I think this is probably the greatest turnout for the festival throughout the weekend. Between that, this past weekend, and the concert a few weeks ago, raising money to fight cancer downtown, great turnout, putting our best foot forward here in the city, and both of those great community events coming together. The storm damage from the other week is still being cleaned up. Tuscarora Park area was probably one of the hardest hit areas and still being worked on. There's still a number of very large trees in Tuscarora Park that were totally uprooted. If you have not seen the damage there, I don't know if impressive is the right word. It's impressive that no homes were seriously damaged, but that number of trees and those large trees coming down. So we're still working on that and continuing with that effort. You may have seen over the August break, the city was featured again in another Crane's Business Magazine article. And this time we received a $350,000 Transportation Improvement District, or TID grant, that we applied for. That was 100% of what we asked for. So working with the foundation on that site, the Middle Street site. So very excited about that. We continue to meet with the foundation, meet with developers, builders, businesses, and site selectors on the development of this property. So hopefully some news pretty soon coming out about that site. In addition to the finance director's report, we're always trying to follow what the feds are doing, whether that's with the interest rate that they've been increasing over the last few years, what they're doing in general with different projects and programs, what our business community is experiencing, what's keeping the owners of businesses up at night. And as the finance director said, there's some businesses that pay the estimated tax. They make a guesstimate. We did have a company years ago who would make a large estimated tax payment, and then we'd have to make that refund. So keep that in the back of our mind as we go over those reports. And then just lastly, Residential Services Relief Program. We've been pushing this out, trying to get people signed up for reductions in property taxes and other reductions if they qualify. We've been getting this out all year and mailing it out to people, emailing it to people, having different events. Obviously, we're going to continue doing that with the property taxes going up. Any relief that we can give to our residents is going to be beneficial for all of us. So I appreciate council changing the criteria on that several months ago, so we match what the county's doing. So you meet our requirements, which is the same as the county. We just turn the application right over to the county for the property taxes. So short synopsis of the August recess. Are there any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. With nothing else, this meeting is adjourned at 7:56 p.m. Thank you.